Yo guys, as I promised, today we have a special guest again. His name's Kelian and he's our splits wizard. He's gonna learn us to do a proper side splits.
Welcome guys, my name is Kenji. I'm a tricker from the Netherlands. I do this professionally as well. I've learned a lot from Mariska herself concerning splits and flexibility overall. So today we are doing what I use to do side splits and exercises that I'm doing regularly. I think the most important thing about stretching overall, especially for splits, is doing it on a regular basis, and especially opening up the hips with different exercises. So the thing is, it's never one exercise to unlock something, and especially for splits, it's more like a whole leg thing in order to open up for the splits. I used to get into them at full split, but due to a surgery, a piece of my hamstring got taken out to repair my ACL, and it's a bit tighter now, so I have to rework this side in order to do my splits again. But we'll start with the first thing. So the first, I always do it in like different steps. I use different exercises to warm up different parts, and I always start when I'm doing splits with this one. So one foot in front and one behind the other. And this is mainly for a hip opener to open up the side. Gluteus. I think it's the gluteus medius or minor. So the thing about this one, it's a basic stretch. I think you used it a lot as well. Straight back and just go forward as far as you can. Of course, always deep breaths in and out, and then we go as far as possible. You go way further than I do. If you're doing it correctly, you should feel it especially on the side.
How long?
So usually when I stretch, and when I only do stretching, not to warm up, but to really gain more flexibility, at least I try to hold it for 30 seconds and to a max out of 90 to 2 minutes from time to time. So the longer you're in it, the more the muscle relaxes, and then the further you come eventually.
Cool. We can do that.
Okay, switch it up. So the important thing with stretching overall, I presume you've heard this many times, but it's always to keep on breathing, deep breaths. And sometimes what I like to do as well is to keep in some dynamic stretching. So instead of just breathing out and going as far as possible, sometimes I like to bounce it out as well. Especially if I'm doing longer stretches, I like to move around a bit, try looking for where it hurts most, then looking for that little pain, and then go back, and then try to go further every time. So I like to move a bit around when I stretch as well. And then when I'm feeling that this tension is getting off, I like to take a deep breath and then look out for my max form again. And then just keep this going for like a minute or two when I'm trying to stretch extensively. So from this position on, I like to do what I call butterfly stretch. So which is both feet one against the other, then pull back as far as possible, not grab the toes, but mostly the ankles, and try to put my hips at first, try to touch the ground with my thighs. At the beginning, most people start off with a bit higher. What I like to do then is really try to grip the ankles and to push outside with my elbows. Once you get that one, you can learn how to pull your legs down with the exterior muscles. So to learn this, what I also do is, that's why I call it butterflies, is just as a butterfly, I like to wiggle it around. And when you wiggle it around, you look for your max stretch again, and then try and hold it. Wiggle it around, hold it, and just try and do this for a small amount of time. Once you can hit the floor properly, you will feel that there is no more hard stretch. Then what I like to do is to go more to the front. So the stage where I'm at now, I can't pull myself down practically. So usually I use a weight or something like a kettlebell, or just a 10 or 20 kilogram Strijp. So what I like to do is like take a disc of 20 kilograms and then put it on the floor or on my hands, and it pulls me down. Also a weight vest. I have a weight vest of 5 or 10 kilos at home. I put it on and then it pulls me down automatically. So what this one does as well is mainly opening up the hips. And opening up the hips for side splits it requires the most different forms, because even with this one, it's not entirely taken on everything, but every exercise we're going through is opening up something for the side split. So eventually you'll get there by doing different exercises. So from this one on, just close it up. Also important in between, because mainly now, I had the surgery on my right knee. Whenever I come out of a stretch, I really feel as if I need to just move a bit to get the blood back flowing into the muscles, which in between stretching, of course, is partly also the breathing, deep in, deep out, exhales through the nose mostly. And then when I feel that the soreness goes away, we go on to the next one. So the next one, also a very known yoga exercise. I always pull up one leg, put my foot on the other, and then at first I try to keep my back straight and go to the front as far as possible. Also, you can also do this by taking the foot in the elbow, hands enclenched, push out the chest to the front, straight back, and then take it as far as you can towards yourself. At first, that's hard for the most people, because this is also working the side muscles of your legs. So at first, most people will be more comfortable with just pulling back their leg and then feeling the stretch. And once you're more flexible, you can also hug the front leg like this, which also takes up a lot of the stress from the back. But once you are too flexible for this one, it gets to the old school yoga pose of this one. Sometimes also close it, I don't know. What I like to do is from this one, once the leg is up, I like to put it down, and to work this side muscle, pull over the elbow, pull back a bit the leg so it's straight as possible. This works the lower back, but also the side glutes. And then look to the back. So from this one, once I relax, I always like to think about my stretches as little body puzzles. So from this one, I want also to try and put the knee on my ankle and this ankle on this knee. And then you also really feel the outside muscles stretching. So I want to connect them at the most perfect point. I want them to be above each other and touching. And from this one as well, you'll feel it very, very deep inside the muscles, and you can also go to the front. But for most people, this is already enough. Feel it as well? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you basically have a little folding routine. It's like origami with your body. So from here, down and down.
That's nice. What do you do if the knees are like this?
So at first, of course, the knees will be apart further. And what I like to do, even from here on, most people can just keep this at least from here of the knee. And then I just like to gently put my hand and then also push and let it come back. So just more
So dynamic stretch.
dynamic stretch.
Okay, good.
And eventually what you want to do, mostly if you don't touch it, it already pulls down and it will take the muscle. And then only when you force it more or when you really use your arm to lean onto it, then it will connect and then the pain greatly increase. So same thing for the other side. In between, always wiggle a little bit loose and then get back to the first one. So what is really important for this one is I can also do it like this with the hollow back. When I do the hollow back, it greatly diminishes the stretch. So what I eventually want to do is really push the chest to the front. And when I push the chest, I feel it increases the stretch on the side muscles. You can also use a wall. So if you put your back against the wall, you can also use the leg to push a bit, to push the pelvis underneath the back more, and then you get straight as well. So from this one, what you also can do is also wiggle it around from side to side. And when you pull, especially away from the leg, then you will feel it increases the stretch. And this also helps for the splits eventually. So you can play with pulling it towards yourself and rotating from left to right, which is if you go towards the leg, it takes off the stress, and when you pull it away, it increases the stress drastically. So, same way, from here, we put it down, straight back. I like to pull this one as close as possible as well. Pull this one towards myself, elbow over. And from here on, you can also really pull your leg towards yourself. The more you pull, the greater the stretch in the hips. Sometimes you feel slipping away the foot in the back, then you pull it back and do it over.
It's also a good twist for your back, huh?
Yeah, this is also really a lower back exercise. So you take two things into one. And then again, the last one, the origami fold. So the more the ankle is above the knee, the greater the stress. You can also just pull it a bit back. So if you do it in front of the knee and you pull it down, it decreases the stress, but maybe if you're less flexible, that will help as well. But the more it is onto the knee, the higher it lifts the pelvis and the more stress on the knees.
Also, don't press too hard, right?
At first, don't press too hard, because not only your pelvis is working a stretch, but your knee as well, because it's in the angle, it goes up and then back down again. So at first, just be really subtle about it. You can just use one hand, and only when you don't feel the stress anymore into your muscles, then you can lean on, really put on pressure.
That's
Okay, it's intense. Okay, so for the next one, I like to use a partner. So when I have someone with me, I use them. And when I don't, I use the wall, or I use like kettlebell weights from 16 kilos at least for my legs. So what I would like to do is, this also helps for your splits, because you can do the splits like sitting with the pelvis up, but eventually you would like to have splits going down with the pelvis straight in line with the legs. So what you do, and this is very important, when you go and stretch your partner, or when she stretches you, just when you have the kneecap and you go below the knee, you can feel the tension on the hamstring. And the important part is it may never shiver. So when there is tension, you can feel it. It should be really hard. But when it starts to shiver out of itself, you know you're too far. So it may never shiver. Up until that point, most people will feel great pain, but it won't hurt that much. So there are two stretches with this one as well. The first one is just straight up. So you have to have a straight back so your pelvis is straight. You don't want it to be off angle. At first you want it to be straight above it. And from there on you just go to the side and go as far as you can. Try and put your shoulder in front of the knee, so not on the knee, but just in front. And if you can also reach over and take the foot. You will take the back muscles as well. You can take my foot, but it's better to take your own. And it will stretch the side as well from the back. So this is just extra on there.
And if you can't reach your toes?
If you can't reach, you will feel the stretch eventually. So even if you just hang with it, then you will feel it stretching, and it's always good. Then you go back to the middle and go to the other side. And whenever I see someone getting too comfortable, I feel, and when you feel that the muscle is less tense, less hard as it was before, you can just slightly increase the stretch. And then you can feel it again. So I use this always as reference, because once the muscles can handle it, they will greatly start to tremble and they will be out of balance. So just make sure that the muscle, even if it's tight, it's not trembling. So once you did the left and the right when it's under tension, then you come back up, take a deep breath, and then you come to the front. So if you have a partner, make sure, you can just put it on the hips. From here on, you just pull them to the front and make them go to just one side. And you should be able to feel. It should be with straight back, so it has no sense of, or no purpose when the back goes hollow. Only try and pull with a straight back. So when I see that the back is still straight and I can pull her to the front, then it's good. And now she's in pain, which means she's really stretching to get more flexibility. So as you can see, you can take a couple of minutes with this one. So what I usually like to do is put on a timer and really be at first at least 1 minute into the left and right position, and then 1 or either 2 minutes in this position. So always keep a slight check on the tension, so from time to time, and it's really important to go under the knee, because the stretch goes further, just over, it overlaps your upper leg and your lower leg, so it connects to the lower part button. So what you want to do is make sure that just, if the knee is here, just go a bit back and then sense the tension. It's where you sense it best. Okay.
Advice.
So when someone goes back up, the stretch is less. So once you had 1 minute left and right, and then 1 or 2 minutes to the front, they come back up and their muscles are way more flexible than when you first started off. So from here, we always give that extra push, and you see that I can move a few centimeters back in. So as you can see now, she's way further in with the splits than before. It hurts, I know. And that's the thing, splits always hurt. The important thing as well is the position of the feet. So what I want her to have is the toes put up to the ceiling. You don't want them to be to the front, neither to the back too much. You just want the knees up, foot up, and she can also flex the foot, that's no problem. You can have flexed feet as well. Can you flex it? Flex it.
Oh.
Yeah, exactly. So for tricking, if you flex your feet in the stretch, you will always also train the muscles below the foot to train the pointed toes. So I know in tricking, people like to have the clean pointed toes. If you do that in your stretches, you also train the tension in the toes. So the last part is releasing the tension, and you should always do this in a very careful manner. So what you want to do is just pull back very slowly, because it hurts very much for the one that is in it. And what you've done now is you've basically pulled out a lot of blood out of the muscles. So just make sure the legs go back to a rest position, then always first start off with wiggling back the blood in it. They will feel sore at first because you've just drained them. Because when you stretch, what you basically also do is you pull out a lot of blood. And then you have to do, after you stretch a lot and you still want to train, for example, always do some exercises to make sure the blood flow goes back in it. So, you're going to do the same. You're going to do the same with me. So, what is important for the one that is stretching you? So, if someone is very flexible, sometimes you will have to be in a stretch as well. If that does not work, then just place your feet instead of on the ankles, just place them back on the lower leg and a bit more towards the knees. Don't go over the knee. So I know a lot of people don't like to be stretched on the upper legs on the insides because that hurts the most. The muscle that is on tension is mostly visible here and not on the lower leg. So just use the lower leg as a pillar to push them. So from here on, again, just lay down. You pull everything from your back. It doesn't matter if you kicks, if you have to stabilize. So the abdomen and the back muscles are very important, and the more flexibility you have in your back, the more you can use in your tricks as well. So that's why even if I'm just training the legs, I want to open up also the connection between my hips and my back. I want it to be flexible so I can use it for multiple purposes. So that's why whenever I'm doing the legs and I can train my flexibility in the back, I always take it with it.
Nice.
Okay. So the same thing, from here on I just go to the front. And for the one that is in pain, it is important to keep on breathing. So you want to
I like this more actually.
inhale and exhale.
It's like a cuddle.
So what we also can do is, could you stand up?
Like,
Yeah. So if someone is able to help you as well, what helps, and this is the worst part for the one that is stretching. Whenever someone has this flexibility but still has to go down with it as well, and you want to train this position, then someone that is with you can also help you push on the lower back. So the thing is, it has no use to push on the shoulders because if you extend, you will go lower as well. But it's mainly the lower back, that if there's pressure on the lower back, that helps you with the split. Okay. So again, after intense stretching, just make sure to get the blood flow a little bit back into it.
Now double your money and make it stack.
Okay, on to the next one. So, back to the yoga poses, I suppose. What we're going to do now is we're going to focus again on the hip flexibility. This is warrior pose, right?
This one.
Yeah. So usually I mix this up with a small routine where I get into this one to downward dog to different positions, but we are doing it for splits now, so I'm only doing this small routine. So what I like to do, I also like to do the origami, the folding from one position to the other. I always start off with the back knee straight, knee above the ankle, and make sure that I'm in the greatest flexible position that I can be with a straight knee. From here I like to touch down, eventually put down the knee and the foot, and then go to the elbow. So what you're doing right now is mainly opening up the hips. I like also to play with keeping it straight and putting it to the outside more, so I feel that it's rotating. Eventually, when this gets comfortable or more comfortable than when I start in it, I like to put down my toes and stretch the leg all the way to the back from this one on. So this one really helped me with opening up the hip. So from this position, what I like to do is I like to put down the knee, put down the foot as well, get back up, put this knee straight, pull down the toes to stretch the calves, and now go as much forward as possible with a straight knee. So even if you're not flexible and you're just like this and you want to go down, what I always tell people is just use your leg as balance point first, or just to hold on to, and then later on touch down. what I figured out is for splits, it is very helpful to also know the front splits. So when you do side splits, the front split will also help you, and we'll get back to that later. But for now, these exercises will also help you to increase the front splits. From here on, I like to extend the back leg as well. So you make an A shape with your legs. And I try to put my back as straight as possible by keeping the leg in front straight and the back leg as well. The last one that I do in this routine is go to the pigeon, right?
Yay.
So for the pigeon, if I explain it well, you fold in your knee towards the outside, back leg straight, and keep your center weight, especially on the hips, so you can pull down, right? This one can go in, or do you do it?
The more you bring it forward, the intenser it gets.
Intenser it gets, exactly.
But
so what I like to try is always to put this one in some sort of an almost 90-degree angle, so it really opens up the hip. And that's the pigeon.
Oh, cool.
So let's take it from the other leg as well, otherwise we won't get into that split. So again, warrior pose, is it, right?
Still sore from that.
From the previous one, eh?
Yes.
Yes, I know. So warrior pose, again, a 90-degree angle, knee above the ankle, back leg strength out. Just try and hold this one because it's also good to keep tension on the stretch to make the muscles more powerful in the stretching position. Then touch down, first with just the hands, eventually with the knee as well, and going to the elbows. I like to move in and out with my knee to look for that painful point.
If you can't get on the elbows, you can just stay on your hands, right?
Yeah.
Like this.
So a lot of people will just stay here, it's intense enough. But when that just, after a while it gets over and then you can just go down. Then if you're able to, also try and lift the foot on the toes, because the higher it gets, the intenser for the hips as well. Like I said, I like to move around a lot into my stretches. Again, front leg straight, toes back, hips above the knee, and then as far as forward as possible. Then eventually extending the back leg. So what I found out also is when I started doing extra training with weights, weighted training to increase strength in the legs, I made sure that I also kept my flexibility on point. Like almost every intense workout with weights, with weightlifting, I also combine it with stretching, because if you lose, if your muscles get way stronger, they also get way tighter and you lose a bit of flexibility. And in the end, if you don't keep it up to date, you lose it all the way. So what you want to do is to find a balance for yourself. You don't have to do it directly after the workout, but make sure you incorporate flexibility workout with strength training. So next up, what we're going to do is we're going into the last one before I always do my splits. I don't know how it's called. What I like to do is go into some sort of a sumo squat, so with the legs faced outside, so my toes are 180 degrees opposite of each other. Then go as far
It's also a balance.
down as possible. So I like to put my elbows on my knees and push them outside, and then change position. So from hanging really inside to also try to put my hips straight and into a horse stance.
This is hard.
So yeah, it's a balancing as
It's
well.
a balancing thing.
But just being in it, just moving around, just hanging, pushing, going from side to side, playing with it basically, you will feel on the inside a lot of stretch. You can push extra to increase. If you try and put your pelvis straight up, it will greatly increase.
Oh, shit.
Ja. Voel je? And like we say in Dutch, je voelt hem wel. You'll feel it. So, with all those stretches, you can eventually, what I eventually do is I go into the full extensive side split. So what I like to do is the most efficient exercise I found in my splits is to go from the front split to the side split to the other front split. Because that rotation of the hips, where you go from side to front to side and back, is what really helped me to unlock the hip openers required for the side split. So, I'm going to just twist it a bit. So I'm just gonna do it real quick. Of course, you want to do every exercise for as long as possible, like reaching up to 1 minute, 90 seconds with 2. So what I like to do is I like to start into my front split. From here on, when I'm comfortable for a while, I like to switch to the side split. Try 2 things. One is being as straight as possible. Sometimes I use a kettlebell, or you can use a chair, or someone. And then go front side on my elbows. So basically it's the same thing as we did with sitting straight up and pulling you down. And from here on, as deep as possible, go back to the front split. Because that rotation from front to side to front is what really helps you opening up every muscle around the hip. So at first I like to be in those positions for a good 90 minutes.
90 minutes. Let's
90
go.
seconds each, and then I like to play around and just 10 seconds, 10 seconds, 10 seconds, wiggle around. Sometimes I even stop stretching, do a few exercises like weighted lunges with 2 kettlebells, and then get back into it, because the warmer I am, after a while you're a bit cold, then you warm up back again, and then you go into those splits, and you get a bit further as well. So that helps as well. So let's try it with you. Front split, side split,
shit.
front split.
Alright.
As far as possible.
Yes.
Yes, perfect. So just stay in it for a small while. So the important thing when you're going to switch is basically it's like this in the split. You want to be as low as possible. Rotate the hips just to be in a side split. Exactly. And now stay there.
I hear it. And then
So if you're with 2 people, what you can do is the important thing. I will push down on the pelvis straight down, so from above to the ground. And I will also keep my hands on the upper legs to make sure she does not go forward. So if I just push a bit, it greatly increases the stretch. I don't push hard, I just, like I can do it with 2 fingers as well, which sounds very dirty for me. When someone is laughing, it means they're in pain, but they're still okay. So you can still. I can also check the tension, and then from here on, just rotate to the next one. So I enjoy other people being in pain like this. So most of the time I'm like this, yes, very good, go on. The motivator is very important with stretching as well. And then go back the same routine as well. So once you're in here, it's not done, you have to do the same thing as well, because some people, and especially I find this out with myself, you have one favorite leg, like almost everyone has one favorite, and you get easier to the side splits from his favorite leg than from your wrong dark side leg to get back to the front split. So in order to make sure that's balanced out, that you get as well as easy from this one to the side split, you have to do them both sides. So the routine again, once you're warm, you go from front to side to front. And whenever you do a side split, try and put your toes to the front, because eventually you want to be able to hold it as well. And I started off by doing it first like small holds and then increase the duration bit by bit. But what you basically want to is be able to stand like this into your full split, which means your toes should point to the front, hips straight, and then go down. So basically that's my routine for splits. I think that no matter how much work you've got to do, if you just start doing especially different small exercises at first, it will increase greatly your overall stretching concerning the legs. These especially will help you get a better split.
Thank you very much.
So also thanks to my yogi sensei, which taught me most of the things yoga related to increase my splits. And thank you for having me. And I hope to see you in the future.
Thank you very much.
Namaste. Ja, kijk. Open.
Oh, goed.
Deze?
Ik hoop nu wel dat er nu iemand binnenkomt op de chat.